I've decided I'm going to start reading you my stories. I have one that I'm doing about a whole traveling carnival, and I'd like to do that, read that one for you, but I tried it, and I don't know it enough to speak it more to the camera. So I'm going to have to write it down in a book or print it off before I can read it to you. But this one, there's a mermaid in my other book, and this is her backstory. So I called it An Old Fish Tale. On the first boat ride of the year, dawn was breaking over the hills, causing the sky to be a particular shade of dark blue. The kind of blue that is filled with hope and adventure, fear and distress. There was a calmness in the water that morning, an eeriness that only a fisherman can sense. He wasn't going to cancel his daughter's birthday based on a feeling, especially since their love for the sea was the only thing that they had in common. As they sailed off into the sunrise, strange colors started faintly appearing in the sky, every cloud telling a story, as if the universe was creating a puzzle for the young birthday girl. She saw boats, mountains, animals, and faraway lands, and her and her father were so mesmerized by the clouds that neither of them noticed that they had drifted into the forbidden zone. It was infamous for strange activity. As her father started turning the boat around, they drifted into a log floating in the clear water, swearing it wasn't there a second ago. A sense of urgency had started to settle in the stomach of the fisherman. The more he tried to get away, the cloudier the water got. The water started to get thick, like soup. Fear had started turning the fisherman's mood into distress. This was not something he was ready for. In fact, nobody could possibly be ready for this strange turn of events. The man was so uneasy the water started to get as thick as mud, causing the boat to get stuck. His daughter had stayed exceptionally calm throughout the turn of events. He had always known that his daughter was different from the others. He could never pinpoint it. She was the most beautiful girl in the village, and she insisted on being left alone with old storybooks, and playing in forest with animals, and kissing frogs instead of boys. The odd girl turned to her father, who was shaking in his boots. She spoke angelically. "This is my destiny." Stepping into the port side of her father's boat, she jumped into the murky waters below. The water started to clear up back into the spotless sea it once was. As this happened, the fisherman's fear began to subside, and sadness rushed over him as he started to sail back to shore. This was not the end for the young girl, but merely the start of a whole new life. The last glimpse her father got of his daughter was a splash of a big blue fin. As the water washed over her body like a baptism, she could feel her skin growing rough and learning to breathe on its own, only coming up for breaths every couple of minutes, and soon, not at all. If this was destiny, what now? Had she entered some forgotten folklore, left living a life with no purpose, hiding from the cruelty of man for eternity, or until the spell wears off? Jumping off the boat, abandoning the only thing she knew, was starting to seem like a bad idea. Accepting to embrace a life she did not choose was not going to be an easy task. She read about mermaids before, in one of her old storybooks. The story was always sticking with her, causing her to ponder why mermaids were always so sad. Now, she was starting to understand it firsthand. How could one live a life without books and stimulating conversation? This was not a life that she wanted to be a part of. Instead, she decided she wasn't going to be an old fishtail, hiding from the perils of the world her whole life. She started swimming towards her old village, under familiar boats, dodging nets and hooks like an obstacle course, coming to the surface every now and then to learn to breathe with her lungs as well as her scales. The last thing she wanted to do was forget about the past life. She knew it was going to be difficult to be a part of a world of skeptics, a part of a world where magic doesn't exist in the mind of the everyday person. Oddities cast into the darkness, out of sight and mind. She wasn't going to let this happen to herself. She had never done what everyone had told her to do before. Why should she start now? While fantasizing about how she was going to change the world, she heard a murmur from within a nearby cave. It sounded like someone was trying to speak to her, only using broken speech, almost as if the words had been lost in the walls of the cave for many years, echoing for so long that the only thing left was a faint remnant of sound. The girl was not scared. In fact, she thought that this was the sound of destiny awaiting. Unsure how to enter the cave without a sound, she did not go inside. This may be her world now, but that does not mean it was hers to destroy or disrupt. There must be a way to unlock this mystery. After a few days of exploring her new world, she ended up swimming into the darkest part of the pond. She named it the depths of the abyss. In the distance, she saw a foreign object glimmer, a glimpse of hope teetering on the brink of nothingness, a hole so deep that her new set of senses could not hear the bottom. Even the slightest change of water motion could cause it to plummet into almost certain death. There was no doubt in her mind that this was what she had been looking for, even though it was too far to identify the glimmering object was. All she knew, the wake her new tail made would be too strong to get close enough to retrieve the bizarre light without it being lost in the darkness. She needed help. As she was heading back to her usual spawning grounds, she heard something rustling through the kelp beds in a nearby plateau. Seeing only a rhythmic sway flowing through the thick leaves slowly making its way in her direction. There was only one explanation for such a queer movement, so perfect and smooth. There she saw it, a water serpent she was always warned about, though she never thought she would ever meet one face to face. She was sure that the only things she had been afraid of were not in the water, but atop it. She read about eels before. She knew to keep her distance. She always knew that they were very gracious. Not only filled with grace, but filled with light, the two attributes she was looking for to help her on her quest. She never imagined a creature who possessed these abilities would be so eerie, and would almost certainly take the object for itself. Watching the eel's rhythmic motions, she caught fire with a song that ignited inside of her. A song she had never heard before, yet it sounded so clear in her head that and so effortless, it was as if she had rehearsed it from infancy. A song so pure of heart, even the surrounding evil would succumb to its beauty. The creature she had once been afraid of was now making music with her. A melody so soft and humble that it sounded as if it was waiting its whole life for this moment. How could such a volatile creature make such a wonderful sound? With that thought, the eel turned from its goodness he was enveloped in. With that, she realized how important it is to stay pure of heart in this world. Deception isn't magic. Real magic comes from within. The lines of evil were subjective. Not all that is thought to be bad is, and just because one may seem good, doesn't mean there is no bad within. The eel, being this intuitive creature it was, sensed this realization. Without being asked, he swam out to the ledge of the abyss. He brought her back a shell. It was covered with a pearl-like surface. She held this shell in her ear. Inside played her song. She now sensed a great kinship with the serpent. Even with his sharp teeth and unstructured body, he did not judge her like she did him. This was more than she could say about any of her friends on land. Now that she possessed the key to the cave, she swam back, with her new friend swimming cautiously behind. I wrote a lot more. It's on my computer, and I think that's good enough for now. That's actually pretty long. So, I'll actually, in the description below, I'm going to put a link to the story, and you can read it, and I would love feedback. I'd love people to tell me what they thought about it, if they liked it. Try not to tell me if you don't like it. That's kind of a personal thing. But if you, I almost failed English class, so I'm not very good at writing. And hopefully it was okay. So I want to continue doing these little segments. kind of as I write them, just to keep me writing and keep me going. And yeah, hope you liked it. I'm gonna do more of my carnival one, because that one's the real pride and joy. That's the one with all the lessons that I want people to learn. I'm a storyteller. I like to tell, like, very, I don't know. There's a lot of levels to my stories. It's kind of like watching American Horror Story. There's so many levels that there's just so much information, but you have to read between the lines, or you have to know a whole lot about a certain subject. But hopefully I will open up ideas, and if people have questions where stuff came from, or other ideas that they have, or questions they have for me that they want me to answer, would be cool. I like that. I like telling you guys stuff. I like telling people stuff that they want to know, instead of just making videos of, like, what I think is cool. 'Cause sometimes what I think is cool just isn't nearly as cool to the whole rest of the world. So, yeah. Peace. Love you guys.